stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. John?
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. I'm going to be sitting in for Sherry Leffler because she's losing her voice. So, but we'll go ahead and get started with today's meeting. Chairman.
Okay. Well, Sherry, we saw Sherry last evening and she told us she was having difficulty, got a little laryngitis, and we all hoped that she recovered, and we're wondering why you didn't get it.
Yeah,
Not yet.
not yet.
So let's call to order and have a roll call here.
All right, Tracy, you want to start?
Tracy Klauser, PCCD staff.
Wayne Howard, PCCD staff. John Bruno, State Constable, Dauphin County.
Ron Gruddy, Indiana County Commissioner representing the County Commissioners Association.
Greg Westover, Diego County Constable.
John Fowl, PCCD.
Thomas Berletic.
Bud Pites, Constable, Allegheny County.
Bill White, Pennsylvania State Police.
Beth Romero, PCCD staff.
Okay, very good. We'll begin with the action items, Joe.
Okay. The first item is the minutes from the August meeting. Basically, page 1 through 5. If anybody has any comments or changes or edits.
We have a motion to accept the unapproved minutes from the August meeting.
Motion. I'll second.
Motion made by Pikes, seconded by Major. Roll call. Chris?
Gentlemen.
Aye.
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 Okay, next item is the unapproved financial report for November 15th meeting.
All right, starting on page 6 of your packets, the fiscal statement. Beth Romero from our fiscal staff will cover that.
Okay. John said fiscal report is on pages 6 through 10. Under receipts, the balance carried forward from the previous fiscal year was $1,762,587.83. Fees collected through the first quarter were $437,573.36. The total funds available as of September 30, 2018, $3,493,051.83. Under expenditures and commitments, the cumulative expenditures as of September 30th, 2018 were $653,355.06. Total cumulative expenditures and commitments as of September 30, 2018 were $3,694,630.84, and that includes $287,479.57 in administrative expenditures and commitments. And the breakdown of these costs, pardon me, is on page 7. Total uncommitted funds as of September 30, 2018 is a negative $201,579.01.
Does anybody have any questions? Just one comment, and you can see it on page, I think it's 8, where it shows the contracts, and we just closed out the last contracts, and we money that came back was uncommitted, that was not used from the training contract was over $400,000, so that is then available in the fund going forward. So, anything else?
What? Let me ask you this, John. Do you feel more comfortable at this point than, say, last November?
Yes, actually, and I guess we can get into that now. Did you pass that out, Sherry? Can you pass one down for me? There's a sheet that Sherry passed, and this is, this document. So this shows back in May when we were proposing cutting training and what that would get us financially to move forward. So on the far left, at that time we were projecting savings of about $879,000 with, but that was suspending all firearms, et cetera, suspending all basic, reducing Con Ed. So that was kind of a high standard. In the middle, under July 17th, based on board discussions and actions, deciding to keep the 4-hour show and shoot. So we're keeping firearms training and a few other things, one basic and a basic fire or two basic firearms. Then we revised that projected savings down to about $746,000 due to all the cuts, etc. And at that time, we were projecting the total cost for the training year down at the bottom in the green, about $1.2 million for training year 2019. And so on the far right is we've worked with the schools. They've submitted their revised budgets for 2019 based on reduced training and et cetera. And so we're now projecting, this is what we're currently projecting. And then, so the reduced savings is going to be about $630,000. That's just on the actions the board took as far as reducing hours of training, et cetera. But as we've gone through the budget revision process with the schools, between things the staff has reduced or negotiated and things the actual contractors themselves have taken on costs to absorb or taken out of their budget, right now the estimate is that savings will actually be about $888,000. So we're kind of on par with the $879. And again, part of that changed over time because we kept a basic firearms courses, the show and shoots, etc. So we're on target. And if you look, this is our estimate now based on budget. This doesn't mean actual. About $1.4 million to run the training for 2019. I suspect it'll probably be 1.3 or a little less, as we always have a little extra in there because, especially when it came to the firearms, we reduced it from 25 people for the qual to 20. Just talking with our firearms instructors, we know there's going to be more failures, and having five less people in that qual session will help them manage that better and be able to get people who have to reshoot, etc. So we had to tack on a few extra sessions for qualification. But all in all, I think we're on target. We're pretty close to what we projected back in May. So
you feel you have a better comfort level at this time than you would at last year at this time.
Correct. And based on these, I think realistically we will be just under, revenues have been in the 1.6 or 7 per year. And so if that training cost can come in next year under 1.4, it's not great. I mean, it's a kind of a thin margin.
We've talked about improving even more.
Right. So, but that brings that in line, our expenditures in line with revenues. Right. That was the ultimate goal.
Very good.
So,
anybody have any other comments on the matter? Or no? Well, then I guess we need a motion to approve that, correct? I have a motion to approve the financial report for the November 15th, today's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Before we go for vote. Is there a breakdown on what reductions the schools took by school? Do we have that?
well, we can get that to you. Like I said, we haven't finalized their revised budget yet. They gave us an initial revised budget. We talked to each school about, line by line. We're sending it back to them now because there's a few more things they need to fix, tweak, reduce, whatever. But we can provide that at some point, yes.
Okay, I think there was a discussion point, in fact, I may have raised it, to try to minimize the turbulence of the schools and what they're doing. And I'm sure that does that. Have they made the recommendations on the reductions themselves?
Well, some of these were reductions the board directed, reduced number of training hours, and then other things the schools themselves have looked at how they do things, and they've made some reductions on their own side to try and, they're pretty aware of the financial situation.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we ready? Roll call.
Sean
Tom?
Bruno, aye.
Rod Roddick, aye.
Craig Westover, aye.
Buck White, aye.
Tom Berletti, aye.
Bill White, aye.
Good. Okay, what's the next thing here? 2019 cost for attending constable training class.
Right, so with the reduction of the training budgets, we recalculate what a constable would pay for attending training that they failed or, had to retake or whatever. So page 11 is those revised training costs that a constable would have to pay. Mainly, the biggest one probably is going to be the firearms in case somebody fails and has to pay to take it again.
Okay.
So we just need to, and you see the amounts listed there. And Wayne, can you comment? Most of these have gone down significantly. Significantly.
Well, the basic training and basic firearms are the same at what the
Right.
was previous.
But the Con Ed and the annual qualification, the firearms went down. The firearms basically got cut in half, didn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Just real quick, a point on this, and Constable Antoine Malloy, you may be able to give me an answer or shed some light on it. It's come to my attention that the Allegheny County Constable Association is either approved or is considering financial assistance to constables that have to remediate their training in some sort. Are you aware of that?
I think that's kind of a little bit confused, Judge. We're considering practice during the year for
Then I stand corrected.
at a minimum cost. We're going to pick up part of the cost so that because we won't have as many training hours. So our purpose is to try to get more guys to have the ability to pass instead of showing up short. Showing up cold and not getting enough practice during the course of the year. So
I think it's a good idea.
yeah, we're actually talking with a couple of the instructors from PCCD. That was going to be one of my questions. We wanted to make sure it was okay.
Well, we can get to that at the proper time, but thank you. One other question. Are you aware, is this being considered or put into motion anywhere else across the Commonwealth? Okay, we got people in the back there.
CCA,
Yeah.
Lancaster County's going to join it as well.
Well, I think that's really good that the associations have stepped up. From what I saw at the planning meetings we had, we had some good people here.
Yeah.
And people that are interested and people that are wanting to do some things. So that's good. Any other comments? No?
we just need to,
So we need a vote on,
Yep.
we voting on here?
to approve these.
Approve the cost for 2019 Constable Bruno.
So moved.
Oh, we need a motion, yeah. So he made it. Pike, you want to make the second?
Second.
Okay, Constable Bruno, roll call.
Sean Bruno, aye.
Rod Roddick, aye.
Craig Westover, aye.
Tom Berletti, aye.
Buck White, aye. Bill White, aye.
Very good. So now we come to instructor certification.
Yeah, we just have 2 instructor certifications, Wayne.
Yeah, the first one is submitted by Indiana University of Pennsylvania for John Weiser. The requested topic is general certification. Currently, he's a PA state constable. Some college, he attended Harrisburg Area Community College. 5 years of law enforcement experience, 3 years of instructional experience. His last instructional assignments were with the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the Bureau of EMS Services. He's certified. He's a state EMS instructor, MOAB, CPR, EVOC, and he has multiple other EMS fire certifications. Staff makes the recommendations for John Weiser for the topic for general. The second,
Speaking on it individually or what?
what?
We speaking on it individually or collectively?
Yeah. The second one is Robert Hartford, submitted by Penn State University. He is currently certified for general as well as firearms. He's requesting certification in communications. Currently, he is the constable training coordinator for Penn State Fayette. He has a BS degree in the administration of justice from Penn State University. 25 years of law enforcement experience, 20 years of instructional experience. His last instructional assignment, he's been teaching for the program, the constant training program relative to firearms. He's an NRA firearms instructor for handgun, shotgun, also for patrol rifles for the NRA. Staff recommends board certifications for Robert Hartford for the requested topic certification, communications. Those are the only two we have this week.
May I make a comment regarding John Weiser? I've known him for several years now, and I couldn't think of a better individual to instruct the rest of the constables. John, always prepared, self-starter, quick study, and I think he would be a definite asset to the instructors. That's the end of my comment.
Move to approve if you're looking for a motion.
I am.
Second,
Roll call.
John Bruno, aye.
Fred Reddick, aye.
Craig Westover, aye.
Tom Black, aye.
Bud Bites, aye. Bill White, aye.
Okay. I guess we're on to discussion items. Any discussion items?
Well, it was the financial document, but we covered that during the fiscal report. I just want to give you an update. So where we are financially, I think we're going to be well set for 2019.
Very good.
And again, it doesn't take away that what happens after 2019 financially. I mean, that's a very thin margin between revenue and expenditure. So, okay. That was the only real discussion item we had.
Okay, good. Next item on the agenda, informational items.
Right.
We've
Well, the training fund cost savings update.
We've already talked
Yeah,
about
right.
this.
Right.
How about the 2019 implementation
Plan. So the training schedule will be released end of November, Sherry?
December 3rd.
December 3rd. We've worked with the schools to get the 2019 training schedule together. As far as the firearms qualification, it's going to look and sound the same for guys to sign up through sets, you know, so it'll appear as a regular class, even though it's just a 4-hour qualification session over 8-hour Con Ed. So that schedule is ready to go.
And no printed copies this year.
Right, no printed copies. It's available on the webpage. Also, to an email is going to go out. So if somebody signed up to receive emails, you'll get a link to the document. So if you want to print off a copy, you can. And I don't want to jump ahead, but one of the things with the firearms is trying to reduce costs and saving time. There's still a written test for firearms. It's already out there live in sets. There's a firearms study guide. It's only about a 15-page study guide. We've pulled it from existing curriculum, and it covers the fundamentals of, safety and marksmanship for firearms. It's going to be a brief written test, but constables have to study that prior to coming to their sessions, their responsibility. So, and we publish that in the training bulletin, and we'll make sure we reiterate it in any future bulletins or documents going forward. So they can access that now through sets. So.
Very good. Next, the online training update.
Online training. So we have a scope of work we drafted basically to support this program as well as deputy sheriffs because they're going to online training for continuing education as well. And we've put it out to some vendors who have learning management systems. And we've had some basic meetings because we have to they had to ask questions about the scope of work on the technical side, what's involved with our systems like SETS or the deputy sheriff system. So we're just now waiting for some proposals to see financially what it's going to cost. Like I said, on the deputy sheriff side, we've done an experiment with one class at the academy. We took an existing 8-hour class, converting it to an online that the deputies will have the first 4 weeks of the academy to do online, and then there will be an instructor-led session just because they have the time to do that. and the instructor-led session. So that's going to go live in January. That'll be the first run. It only costs about $4,500, and that's not bad. Some of the other vendors were about the same place. One vendor was 8 times that. So we feel $4,500 or under for a module is a good planning number as far as converting curriculum and putting it online. We have a lot of existing curriculum, that was already developed that will go in place for 2020 for the online. We also we've had some technical meetings with Eric, our developer, the guy who's developed sets and the deputy sheriff system, as well as 1 or 2 of our IT people. And I'm feeling very confident we could integrate online training fairly quickly and at low cost. So I think
and our target date is
2020. Yes, and I'm after having these 2 technical meetings, I'm pretty confident that's very doable. So,
good.
So 2020 we may only have, depending on what the board, and we'll bring things to the board, but it'd probably only be 1 or 2 modules online the first year out, just getting them developed and getting them out there, and then the board can decide
Expand from
where they want to go from there.
Okay.
So,
very good.
Anybody have any questions?
If I could just add, John, we were going to meet in December to have the work group get back together early next year then as well.
Right. Okay. Right.
Anything else? How about the 2018 training grievance update?
All right. On page 13, there's a list of training grievances that the board received or the staff received. If you look through them, all of them are either about a no-show or a failure, mainly firearms, either a basic or an annual firearms. And Sherry handles many of these, and she puts in there the result. A lot of times we either we respond to them, say we received your training grievance, but we need additional information. There's some that they don't respond, we never hear from again. Other ones do, we can't get resolved. Maybe it was extenuating circumstances, and we take that into consideration. And so this is just a report out to the board on what gets resolved with those. None of these were outside of existing board regulation and policy. So there wasn't anything here that was outside of the norm as far as what happened. So if anybody has any questions.
Typically, how many grievances do we see in a year, do you know?
A dozen?
Maybe a dozen.
And they tend to be no-shows or failures, firearms failures. I was, at a basic firearms several weekends ago. I was there the day before they did qualification on Sunday morning. And I got there towards the end of the day. The constables were done shooting for the day and talking with the instructors. And they had concerns about 2 constables, whether or not they'd passed, just no prior experience, poor gun handling, trigger, sight alignment, all that. And the 1 constable did not pass. But the instructor kind of said that going into it, the day before they were concerned that, they were marginal. When we look at the assessments the instructors do every day, those things reflect those, and as an instructor, we have you document every day what you're observing with that shooter. So a lot of times the failures, I think people file a training grievance after the fact. They kind of not sure what happened, and a lot of it comes down to it's a personal, perishable skill. I mean, the instructors can only do so much.
And absolutely across the board, no matter what school, if there's a question about scoring on the target, that's resolved before that target ever comes off the board, correct?
Correct. And that is why when they qualify, the instructor and the constable, when they go up and score that target, they both sign off on that. Because if you're the instructor and I'm questioning, what scores there, that's a time for me to say, hey, I want to challenge this or whatever, and try and get that resolved and document that. In a lot of these cases, when we go back to the instructor, it wasn't challenged at the time. In fact, in the one case, I know the instructor said the person didn't have any questions, concerns, didn't challenge how the target was scored or whatever. So
the challenges are happening afterwards, even after we've gone through that process.
correct.
But how often does that really happen?
That,
in a year's time.
that somebody challenged
There are
it?
challenges, yeah.
I'm not aware this year of anybody challenging an instructor, at that time, right there when they're scoring the target or whatever. So, I mean,
That's not
It's usually afterwards, after the fact. After they found out, they went home and they thought about it, and realized they failed and they're gonna have to pay you back, you know.
and that's the thing, because when you go up and you sign off, that's why we have them score that first stage and sign off. So if I know I did really poor on that first stage, and I know I have to get 10 hits of, 2, in the 2 ring at the longer distances, I know that going into that before I shoot. And that's the whole point. When the program first started, they shot 60 rounds, it was scored at the end. And the argument by guys was, well, I didn't know I was doing that bad. And when the board went to the 2 phase and you had to pass each phase, that's when we were having them score and sign off. So when you do shoot the first half and you're doing poorly, you know that the second half you got to focus and get as many in the 2 and 1 ring as you can. So
I mean, as a firearm guy, I've seen more issues over the years with on the wrong target when it got to the 25. They just didn't positively identify they were shooting on their target. So the guy next door would get, a lot more rounds and hit, holes in his target compared to that guy. But unfortunately, that comes down to positively identifying your target.
I went out to a class in October at Hellertown and observed them doing the qual course, shooting for qualification. And there were several constables did okay on the first half, but once they started getting into the distance, they're dropping the rounds. I mean, I stood there and watched one constable, the rounds were hitting the floor, at the 15 and 25. And so, it does come down to that personal skill level. And so.
I mean, basic's a different story, but on the annual qual, the thought process going into this is the day before firearms qualification, if I'm not hitting that target, that means out on the street, I'm a danger to myself and everybody else around me because I've got to be able to shoot cold out of the holster every day. I mean, I have to be at that skill level, the acceptable skill level, and if we're not doing that, I think we're selling ourselves short in our mindset. If we're depending on a lot of practice and stuff to get back up and running, really is that going to help us out on the day?
Good comment. I do believe too, though, it's changing the structure here for the future. It's going to force the constable to get out there on his own and develop and improve his proficiency.
Yeah, good comments all. I can't help but think how times have changed. Many years ago, when I was a rookie cop, would go out to qualify. They'd put the guys that were ready to retire, couldn't see 3 feet in between 2 of the younger guys, and they'd give the younger guys extra rounds and say, put some holes in his target. So he could qualify. But those days are long gone and over, and we certainly don't need that. Work for them.
Help the needy.
Okay. Moving on. Don't get her status and certification, Sean? Or we're up to
Law
waiver.
enforcement waivers.
Waivers,
Yeah,
yeah.
Wayne?
Yeah, this year, actually, we had another gentleman take and pass the waiver test after this list was printed. So we actually had 7 law enforcement training waivers, 7 of which took the waiver exam and passed, and there was 1 law enforcement waiver that was denied. The gentleman that's not on the list is Joshua Dreisbach from Union County, and he passed the waiver test on October 19, 2018. So,
Very
Any
good.
questions?
Any questions on the waivers? Now we come to the status of certification.
This is just a routine update on page 15 of number of constables, that as of the date of October 15th that were certified, there was 1,208 that are currently listed as active and certified. And about 81% of those are certified to carry a weapon for the courts. So,
And I see 4,578 individuals have completed basic training since 1996.
correct. So, very good.
Any Any comments or questions on that?
Yes, please. Out of the 1,208 constables, do you know how many are actually performing duties for
Court?
the court?
I was gonna ask the same.
No, but we can run that. I would wait till the end of the year, after December. So for the next meeting, we could run that and say, and do a snapshot, because keep in mind, this number changes every day as insurance expires or whatever. But
Right.
it's always, that's pretty accurate. So we can have AOPC run that data, and we can do that again. How many guys did we certify in 2018? How many worked for the courts in 2018? So we can have that for the next meeting.
Sherry, can you make a note of that so we'll have that? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just build on that. I was gonna ask the same question, actually.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, is it possible that you could identify those who are working for counties by county? So we would have a breakdown by county of.
Yep,
That's how they give it to us. We'll actually have by name. So we'll say, send them a by name list with their county and cert number and everything, and say, just tell us how many pieces of paper. And all we're asking, as long as they serve one piece of paper, count it. And so AOPC sends us back, and it might have Craig and says he only served 3 pieces of paper in 2018, or he served 1,000. So we'll have it broken out by county and who.
But John, when you said that, it just caught me. You're saying if someone is certified in a county and only delivers one warrant, then you count that person as a full engaged.
No, just
for that county.
Just for the purposes, when we ran this data for 2017, we said we didn't put any limits. We said as long as there was one piece of paper, one document, whether it's criminal, civil, we didn't care. We wanted them on the list so we could find out. So that's all we're doing with is try and get a perception. And when we break down those numbers, there's not that many guys who serve. I think the first break off I looked at was 50 or less. It was a small number. Just like at the top end, guys who were serving thousands of thousands, it was a very small number. The bulk of them fell in somewhere between, I think it was 1,000 and 4,500 or 5,000 pieces of paper, because so many of these guys are part-time. So, and we can break that out, and we can have that.
You okay
Keep
with
in
that?
mind too, Commissioner, the other thing too is when we've discussed this in the work groups and over the last year or two, there are also things some constables do that are judicial duties that the surcharge is not, because the statute doesn't say charge it, so that's not really reflected. So if guys are working for domestic relations, or they're doing, transports, from a county prison to a hospital, or, the surcharge isn't assessed on those because the statute's silent on that. So but I can't imagine that we're missing 400 or 500 guys serving at least one piece of paper. So.
Okay, that question was asked of me at one of the meetings, exactly how many constables are really active in Pennsylvania. What are they actually, what is their function in the county? What do they do? And some people don't know. Somehow we gotta get a handle on that so we understand more, so we can articulate that. So.
Right, and the numbers from 2017, and staff, correct me if I'm off, it was about 1,100 certified constables we sent over to AOPC. And of those 1,100, it was about 742 that served at least one piece of paper for the courts.
And of course, General, you understand that there are dynamics to that, in that there are some counties where constables are prohibited from doing certain things, and others they're not. So if you put it on, if we had John put a big chart back here, it would probably look like a roller coaster if you went across the
by
state.
county, depending on what they're doing.
So in a county, could you have, just out of curiosity, I'm just asking this question to be better informed consumer here. Could you have 50 certified constables in a county and only 4 or 5 of them actually performing duties for the county?
I won't say what county, Commissioner, but from that data, one county had 76 certified constables and 14 did work for the courts.
Okay, the ones who did not work for the courts, that number, do we pay them or compensate them for any part of ongoing training?
Well, we're providing the training to them free. And that's where, in discussions in the past, the board has discussed about linking the training, you go into training to service of the court. So that, and then this is all just, an example. So do we look and say, you did X amount of work for the court, or whether it's one docket, one piece of paper or a minimum, then you come to training and it's provided to you. If not, do we not let them come to training? Do we charge them for training? Those are some of the issues going forward that we need to continue to look at. I mean, those were all discussions in the work group,
Yeah, I remember our discussion. I just want to make sure I clarify my own mind how this operates. And I'm not putting on my military hat here. I'm just, is there a number that are certified based upon the willingness of the president judge of that county to say, we only have in this county the need for 5 constables, 10 constables, 50
right.
constables?
The president judge controls, appointments, the vacancies, and those kinds of things. And also, too,
Controls what kind of work they do.
right,
Yeah.
and the what kind of work they do, whether they're allowed to do civil. I mean, in the 24 years I've been involved, counties have gone hot and cold on. They'll have some incidents, so they take away all the criminal stuff from constables. A new president judge comes in 5 years later. Well, now they get criminal work back or civil or whatever. So there are county dynamics involved in how many of these guys are actually working too.
Some counties, the president judges are very open to appointing deputy constables. Other counties, president judges don't want to appoint deputy constables at all.
Yeah, he's exactly right.
Because, so it really does affect the numbers that show up for training. The president judge has a big input across the state as to how many bodies are going to show up for training.
Well, I guess that's my, do they know that? Do they know that impact on the funding apparatus? That's my question.
I can't say that they know that directly, but they know, and there are president judges, over time who have, been very clear that they want constables to show they really need that deputy, that their workload is, such that they need to have a second deputy. Other counties, you put in the petition, you get appointed. So
Some you can get deputy ceremonial deputies just deputized
for the election,
For the elections,
right? Because
correct.
you have multiple polling places.
So it's all over the board. That sort of leads into this letter that I drafted I want to talk about before we move on.
Before we move on.
Okay.
Well, we only have one last item under informational items, and that's the sets update. And I think we've already talked about that.
Right. This is just basically letting the board know how many constables are registered as SETS users, etc. There's about 1,160 who are current of the active certified constables who are SETS users. That's about 96%. Of course, when we go to online training, that's going to have to be 100%. If you want to stay certified, you'll have to be a SETS user, because the only way you'll access that online training is through SETS. So,
Okay, very good. Any discussion on that or questions? I think that's quite self-explanatory. And before we get to the public voice, this is a good time, I think, Constable Westover, for you to tell us what you wanted to tell us about the letter.
Okay, so I did a letter, and this is as a follow-up to a resolution by the training board back in February. In February, we decided we wanted to have the commission, executive director, forward a letter to the General Assembly asking for help on surcharge fee and some other items. So this year, I've been attending the commission meetings. And of course, the commission has oversight on the training board, on the constable training. And I gotta tell you, in attending those meetings, my perception, and this is my perception, is that the commission is pretty lukewarm to the whole constable program. That they are there, they have oversight, they really are not a cheerleader for the cause, for lack of a better way to put it. So I had the opportunity to talk to the executive director, Darren Myers, and I asked the question, this letter that was done, this resolution back in February, why has that letter not been forwarded on to the General Assembly? And he said, my main reason, Craig, was because it lacks some specifics that I was looking for. I said, tell me what you need, and I will draft a letter accordingly, and I will run it by the board at this meeting. to see if it passes muster. If it does, then I would ask that you transmit this on, because all we have done with the financial cuts that we've made to training is we've kicked the can down the road. We know that $5 surcharge that we're operating off of since 1994, we know that we bought some time with some cuts, we bought some time with maybe online, but 3, 4, 5 years down the road, as cost of inflation of training continues on, we're gonna be back in the same position. The other thing that the executive director was looking for was that we exhausted all our efforts that we could do on our side to try to financially keep this program afloat. And I think we've done that. I think we've demonstrated to anybody that wants to ask, from the governor through the General Assembly down to the constables out here in all these counties, we've done everything in our power as a training board to try to keep this as fiscally economical as we can, and yet provide some level of certification in order to comply with the Supreme Court. So the letter that I drafted takes in specifics about that. Do you want me to read the letter into the record, Chairman?
It's not that long, go ahead.
Okay. Constable's Education and Training Board, the board is requesting the commission to endorse a letter to the legislature regarding long overdue changes to define and reform the Commonwealth's Office of Constable. The position of constable is essential to serve the 560 plus MDJ offices throughout the Commonwealth in the service of process and the collection of costs and fines. Constables are only paid for service performed, therefore it's the most economical means to do the work of the minor judiciary. The legislature created the board within PCCD and the commission in 1994 under Act 44. It was updated in 2009 as Act 49. Act 49, Title 44, 7141 through 7149 requires training and certification of constables to perform judicial work. The Constables Training Fund, the fund, was established in 1994 when the original act was passed. The act established a $5 surcharge, Title 44, Section 7149A and B, on each criminal docket and per defendant named in the civil case. This surcharge has not been increased since 1994. The cost of training over 24 years has slowly increased, and despite the best efforts of the board and PCCD, the fund continues to be depleted. Over the past year, the Constable Education Training Board has taken several drastic steps to reduce training because of the financial issues of the training fund. Firearms training has been eliminated, and only a 4-hour annual qualification course will remain. There are many issues with constables throughout Pennsylvania, but one key change could help resolve many of these issues. There's no standard definition of constable in Pennsylvania. A standard definition would provide a benchmark for everyone from the constable up to the president judge and the district attorney. It would be of great benefit to the board in its oversight role of developing curriculum and providing relevant, up-to-date training to constables. The following is a suggested definition of a constable. Constables and deputy constables are elected or appointed officers and officially sworn peace officers with statewide jurisdiction authorized to enforce only the laws of the Commonwealth bestowed on constables and deputy constables as specified by law and court rules. A constable and deputy constable possess powers as a conservator of the peace who is authorized to serve civil and criminal process, transport prisoners, provide court security for the courts and its agents of the Commonwealth, or as directed by law. Constables and deputy constables may perform other court-related duties assigned by law or court rules. In addition to executing a warrant of arrest, a readily identifiable constable or deputy constable, while in official judicial business, may, without warrant and upon view and probable cause, arrest and commit for hearing any person whose ongoing or threatened conduct is a criminal offense presenting immediate, clear, and present danger to persons. A fee is not payable for the effectuation of a warrantless arrest. There are key sections of the Joint State Government Study Commission on Constables, 2014, that should be incorporated into the statute. The report recommended changes in the areas that require background checks, increase of training hours, increase in surcharge, supervision, removing antiquated, irrelevant or contradicting statutes, incompatible offices or employment, and nepotism issues. It also recommends the establishment of an oversight board at the state level paid for out of the Constable Training Fund. The report was requested by House Resolution 138 of 2013. The board is asking the commission to endorse the report's recommendations and request that the legislature enact many of the recommendations in the report. The current system of constables cannot continue. The recommendations to the report are the best approach to improving the constable system in Pennsylvania. There are many various opinions regarding constables, but the board is asking the commission to to help the board with its statutory responsibilities under Act 49 and improving the overall constable system. The Commission has a long history working to solve both immediate issues within the criminal justice system, as well as a larger issue, or to improve that overall part of the criminal justice system. This effort would be no different. It's time to correct part of the judicial system that has long been ignored, the Office of Constable in Pennsylvania. So that's a letter I drafted, and it's based partly also on conversations I've heard at the commission meetings where it has been said there's too many voices. And specifically, I had a staffer from the General Assembly who pointed to the state police commissioner and said, you constables need to be like the state police, 4,500 troopers with one voice. Well, I truly believe the one voice that we need to get this thing off dead center of the General Assembly is the commission. I think we need to have the commission be our cheerleader and say, we believe in this, and we believe that we need to move this process forward. It's the only way that I can see that we're going to have an impact, because we've struggled, the organizations have struggled, they've gone to various legislators, enactments of different bills, trying to get them through judiciary and get them out for a floor vote. And I think that the boost that we need is to have the commission behind this, effort in order to push through, some of the constable bills that are out there and get this thing moving off that center. So that's the purpose of this, and this was drafted in response to the executive director on some of the specifics he was looking for.
So can we attach our names to that and go over it at the Myers?
If it meets your muster, that's what I wanted to find out.
Oh, how about what's the board feel? I think the letter is excellent. I think it hits every base that we need to cover. John, you have anything to say about it?
No, I think, and like I said, this has kind of been the issue, I think, for the whole time I've been involved, for 24 years.
Well, we've been waiting for this letter, like.
Right. And I think if the commission, I think Craig's right, if the legislature hears from the commission, then they'll take interest and work to resolve, whatever issues. May not fix everything, may not take all the recommendations out of the study, but I think we would get some progress going forward.
Well, shall we, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'd like to, great thoughts in here, Greg. I'm just gonna be open and honest about the letter, because, if I received this letter to make a decision, that's how I review it. I'm not sure exactly what we want to say specifically. What is the issue of cause here? There's a lot of things that are identified in here where you start out and talk about taking action on training programs because of the funding. And it seems as if the beginning of your letter speaks to the need for the surcharge. And I think it's very well stated. When you start getting into the definitions, it's going to bog that decision down because it's in the same letter. And maybe we want to just recraft it in such a way that you get what you want as a specific ask. Even talking about starting out maybe with the joint state government commission in 1994. In that, it talked about the increase in a surcharge. We haven't seen that since 1994. We need your help on this matter. There are other matters that need to be addressed, and we can address that to you in separate correspondence, but right now we need the surcharge. Now, if you put the others in there, I think that constable definition is going to bog it down. That's just my view, and that's how I would see it. If someone gave that to me, I would say, oh, we got to go back and relook at this. But I think you hit all the golden spots. I want to make sure we hit it in such a way that we get the word and message directly to the people who can make a change.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Paragraph 6 specifically is way too broad, and I think that will definitely send flags up, and I think it'll unfortunately cloud the issue. The other thing that I would probably suggest is every year we know court costs, court fees get increased every year since I've been on the job. It's going up $1, it's going up, here. It'd be nice to take from 1994 what those court costs and fees were for the magistrates, and then what they are now as a comparison to say you've left us stagnant, for the last X number of years, yet court costs have risen by this amount exponentially over the same time period. But I don't disagree with the fact that you need a definition of the constable. I think it definitely needs to be clear, but I'm in agreement that like that is gonna definitely shut down the issue.
And I don't have a problem with that, because what I wanted to do is get the discussion going with the board, because we passed a resolution in February, but that didn't happen. You know, that letter never made it to the General Assembly. But at some point, what are the framework? And if you want to take this as a framework and then have staff crunch this out and come back to us at the next meeting with something that is more, or if it's something that, you know, that between now and the next meeting, if you want to use this as a framework, and if you want to clean it up, take the definition part as a separate thing. But I know that for us to continue to financially survive, we've only bought ourselves a couple of years here. So that surcharge thing at some point has got to be addressed. I mean, and I don't know how else to do except through the commission. I mean, am I wrong, solicitor? You know, you're there at the commission meetings, you hear the discussion going on. I mean, I would think the commission themselves have some clout with the General Assembly if you make a recommendation, don't you think?
I cannot possibly speak on that. I don't have a clue. It does sound to me like it's a good path. As because when you have spoken to the commission, it sounds like that's when the impact is made, when they have that direct line from this body to know what's going on, rather than reading stuff in pieces of paper and hearing from staff.
Right.
So I don't have an answer to your question, but I think it sounds like a great idea because of the direct line involved to hear directly from this board.
What happened to the letter that you were going to send to Meyer, or did you send it?
Well, I sent it to those above me, and
So it fell on deaf ears.
right.
Well,
If you want staff to take this and
What I was going to suggest was take the author of this, Constable Westover,
we'll work.
clean it up. Anybody on this board that wants to add anything that's relevant or make a point, they will take your suggestions, and your suggestion was excellent, General, so I think that will be worked into the final product and then circulated to us so we can see it.
Are you thinking of crafting like a separate surcharge letter first,
Well,
and then look at these other issues?
Maybe
yeah,
as a
yeah,
follow-up.
I think that's a good question, and yes, I think the answer there is definitely yes, but I guess what we have to decide, what is the key point that we want to do? Is it the definition of a constable, or is it the surcharge? And
Well,
I think-
the one thing
and I think we need to hit that first one.
Well, the goal is to make us financially.
Okay, so it's a surcharge, I agree. And I think you can craft this in such a way, not quite so lengthy, get the point across, and I think Major made a point about maybe going in a little bit more detail that 1994, the costs have risen. These are the kind of things we're experiencing. We have done everything we can to cut the costs. We need your help on this particular issue. And if you say that, then you'd have to take out the statement that says there have been many issues with constables through Pennsylvania, but one key change could help resolve many of these issues. And that is not the surcharge that you're pointing out, and that's the definition. And so that confuses it.
I think part of the logic, and correct me if I'm wrong, is even to get to surcharge increase, it takes legislative action.
Yeah.
So, as long as you crack open the patient's chest,
Well, we need
why
the commission
address
to get
just
to
one
the.
issue?
Yeah.
We need the commission to get to the legislature.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's where the power is going to have to come from. Because like I said, the competing voices, from the journals. I mean, this is a Senate staffer who says, Craig, there's too many competing voices. You guys have to have a focused voice. Well, maybe the commission is the part of the puzzle that we've missed here, because they do have oversight and they have responsibility. So to a certain extent, if the training fund eventually gets depleted out, or there's other issues that come up with training, unfortunately, whether the commission likes it or not, they're going to own that issue because they have oversight on us. So because of that, maybe that's how somehow we get the commission behind this to, push the general.
Constable Bruno.
Yeah, I think what the general's saying is just hone in on this issue, because this is the issue that'll really catapult us to, this a lot more whole. But I'd also like to see if we could, in the letter, let the legislature know that this fee can be expanded to other areas other services that we provide. Like, just even for example, when you serve a warrant the first time, you apply a $5 fee. But then again, when that second warrant's cut on the same individual, a fee does not get applied. But we still go out. So that fee needs to be applied each and every time, in my estimation, under that document.
It needs to be applied to online payments. There's a pot of money right there.
Exactly. Applied to online pay. It should be applied to, if you are, serving civil process.
Exactly.
If you are serving
Anything directed by the court, there should be a surcharge.
which is using our services for which we were trained.
That's right. I agree. Okay, so you'll work with Craig, and then we'll get this. I think it's important that the letter go to the commission with each of our signatures as well.
And I like the idea what the major said about looking at the other court fees since what they were in 1994. What was it? How much for the judicial project? And all these other things that they charge for. I like that comparison because really then that shows, okay, so this fee has stayed at $5 since 1994. Here's all the other categories of fees that you've charged since then and how they've increased.
Or didn't exist.
Yeah, give that comparison. Maybe that can get there.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion on that?
I think we have a lot of good thoughts here. Craig spent a lot of time, did an excellent job. Mr. Bruno, the general, Major said, hey, let's focus on, came in the general, let's focus on the fact of the money versus, so I think we should send two separate letters.
If we get the money, they're not going to care what the definition of constable is.
That's correct.
Yeah. I think where that's effective, the only reason I incorporated that in was because that's the problem. He just talked about a minute ago with the present judges.
I'm not being critical of it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it all goes by the wayside.
Yeah.
If they bump money up, they don't care what the hell these people do or what the definition of their job is or anything.
In the comparison with the fees, the court fees, that's an excellent idea, to take a look and say, hey,
Exactly.
these guys are.
Okay, we got some people chomping at the bit here. Did you have one last thing, John?
Yeah, I was gonna make a motion on this letter.
Oh, I don't think we're to the point of
Well,
where
I think
I'm
it's a
Do you think, John?
To have.
No, I think if I work with Constable Westover and we bring
That's
back
what-
another
that-
draft,
That was my motion.
retool it.
Crafted along those parts. That you do that. Do we need that?
no, you can just direct staff and we'll
Okay,
take care of it.
They're so directed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd also just probably take what the training costs for constables in 1994 versus.
Sure.
Good point too.
And we have all that data. So
Yeah, I mean,
Very
just,
good.
everything increases, and the
Shoes, the
reduction in training is, huge liability.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, very good. Now we come to the point in the meeting for the public voice. So I'll call people forward. Antoine, you had your hand up 1 minute after 9, so can you come up and are you more comfortable sitting in your seat?
If it's okay. I just wanted to
Identify
comment on the
yourself
letter
for the
that you guys were
record.
discussing.
Can
a
you
few
identify
minutes ago.
yourself for the record?
Sorry, Constable Antoine Malloy, Allegheny County.
Very good.
In reference to the letter, that I think that everything, you guys are on a real good path with that. There were a few things that would affect constables who are working full-time in general that, we've all had discussions about. We haven't gotten together as a group to discuss it yet, but I just wanted to say, while you're looking to get things added in or seeking more funding, some of the major things that we need, including the surcharge, is a raise in warrant fees and a requirement that 2 constables be required for evictions. As we all know, a lot of dangerous things happen on evictions, and 1 constable is only required. But at this time, I'm suggesting and proposing, and I think most of the constables across the state will be in agreement that 2 constables are required for safety purposes, and that should be a requirement and funding be, or.
I do, and I agree, Antoine. Yeah, we should have to do that. Seriously, it gets pretty messy.
Yes.
Can I
And
comment
raising
on
the
that?
warrant fee.
My comment on that would be the book costs for 2 constables on warrants.
Right.
2 constables on transports. And you know what? It's not observed. It's not done. You still got lone rangers out there performing those duties by themselves. And when you ask them about it, when you bring that question up, well, my judge says he's only going to pay for one person. That's bullcrap. Okay, so that we should look at that issue and how are we going to handle it? What are we going to do to resolve this?
I don't know what the board can do to resolve that, but
Well, the constables in general, somebody's got to resolve it.
that's got to come from the Supreme Court and the president judges.
Somebody's got to present that to the Supreme Court or to the president judge or something. The associations maybe should get together and present something.
Well, part of the
Anything
issue
else,
with that,
Edwin?
but, sorry.
Anything else?
For me, no. If I could just address Bud's comment real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
For me, I won't work for a judge who says I'm only sending out 1 constable.
I agree with you.
And
And that might be the way, when everybody gets together and does the same thing,
Right.
that could affect change.
You'll never get all the constables to agree on this.
Okay, now we'll move on.
Everybody's looking out for their own self.
Is that it, Antoine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just as a reminder, Antoine will be appearing at the Holiday Inn in the Delta Room with the Temptations and Little Anthony Imperial Review Friday night. 2 shows, early and late, so just so you know. Who's next? Go ahead. Stand up. Tell me who you are, where you're from.
Constable Brian Webster, Perry County. I am the delegate for the Commonwealth Constable Association. First time I've been here, so unfortunately you're going to see my ugly mug every quarter, hopefully. The only thing I did want to say is Constable Westover's letter. I do agree with the majority, I think, here. You need to stick with the CETA. Okay? We got to get the CETA raised. Really doesn't matter what the definition of constable is if we go broke. If we don't have the money, it doesn't really matter what our definition is. I also agree with the major. I mean, any of us that have worked for the courts, pretty much every year they get $1.50 tacked on for the court fees and stuff. The judge knows that also. So that would be a good measuring point to go off of. I believe that's where we stand on CETA. The other thing, I don't know if you can include it in CETA letter or not, one of the things we petitioned was any docket or any paper that gets issued, if it goes to a constable, judge, I'm not sure how you do it out in Allegheny County, but we have a lot of second warrants, third warrants, fourth warrants. If we're working them, might as well give a state a chunk of that back, and that's more money. They're taking time to work it, so we might as well get the money.
Well, I tend to agree with you. Unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues don't see it that way. So,
okay,
The law's the law.
I get it, but I mean, if the state changes it and we put that on there, I mean, the defendant pays it, or the plaintiff in a civil matter, the plaintiff pays it. So it's not like it's coming out of a county coffer or somewhere. So
right. Okay, thank you.
That's our stand on that. So.
Thank you. Who's next? Stand up. Who are you? Where are you from?
Constable Ron Quinn from Center County. I'm also the spokesperson for the Pennsylvania Fraternal Order of Constables. Few things here. Number one, I just want to get a clarification. So please reinforce my clarification on this. That the purpose of this board is to, by law, train the constabulary for court work and / judicial duties and for firearm certification for all of our duties. That this board does not train the constabulary in election or peacekeeping duties, and that the board has no supervisory capacity over the constabulary. Finally, this board does not define as to when a constable performs their duty, and that liability rests solely between the constable and their insurance provider. Did I say anything wrong?
No, other than you mentioned election day duties, and there is not a lot, but there is some instruction on election day duties.
There's a mention that it's a requirement.
Yeah.
We don't train you on it
Exactly.
because every board of election in every county has their own way of doing business or rules. Or
I think you're on point for everything else.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the things that the PFOC would like to also get some clarification on, and we have our own suggestion on it. If a constable fails at their firearm qualification, they should still have the ability to attend another qualification session before the end of the year when their certification runs out. Certification shouldn't just be yanked right at that particular time that they fail on the course at that particular moment. And it should be at no extra cost except to provide the additional ammunition for the purpose of qualifying. If they fail to qualify by the final qualification opportunity, then their certification ends at the end of that calendar year. And again, if somebody shoots in March, I don't know when the first one is, if somebody shoots in March and doesn't make it, they should be able to not take the whole course, but at least show up to at least requalify on shooting again to see if they can qualify, to give them that second opportunity before we decertify them. So that's our stance right now and stuff. Whereas I think right now, if a constable goes and they don't qualify, they're basically decertified. Are we mistaken on that, or is that correct?
That takes effect 2019. The board voted on that.
Okay.
That takes effect 2019. Right. So right now in 2018, and even in 2019, the board regulation on let's say I fail at the second half, you get a second opportunity on that second half.
Correct.
So it's 2 attempts in one qualification overall session, or So
they
that
can't come
doesn't
back
change
later on.
Right. So if I shoot the first half, I'm good. I shoot the second half, I fail. I shoot the second half, I fail again. Right. As in 2019, your certification would stop.
Why can't they come back later on in the year?
They can, but they pay for it. The board regulation has been, since qualification started, is that the constable for a failure bears the financial responsibility.
But still, it's unfair to decertify that.
Okay, but we've already addressed that.
Point.
We voted on it. We've addressed it, and there's no reason to discuss it any further right now.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of constables are upset about
If I might say something,
don't doubt it.
if I might say something, but when you demonstrated to instructors that you failed, okay, for liability purposes, you can't move on. You have to decertify them at that point in time.
No, because they already have a certification that's still in effect.
Not when you demonstrate. How will that?
That comes from this commission, this certification.
But the board voted. That changes in 2019.
Exactly.
Come 2019, if you double fail, your fire
The
certification.
organization is asking that you readdress it and relook at that.
Very good.
Okay. Why are we shopping around for vendors for the online when actually we've got 3 vendors that we've already contracted for the next few years that already have online platforms? So
I didn't disclose who the vendors are.
Right, but if you're shopping for other vendors, we're assuming that other means other than what we already have.
We're looking for the best product for the best price.
Exactly. We're trying to, because I'm sure if we pursued a vendor just because we have an existing contract with them, I'm sure there would be plenty of constables standing here in the next board meeting after that saying, well, why didn't you look around for the best deal? That's what we're doing. We're looking who can provide the services we're looking for at a reasonable, appropriate cost.
All right. So where does that leave the current vendors then?
I can't get into that.
Why not? It's our money.
Well, first of all, right now, we're in the stages of exploring.
Okay.
Just like anything, when you're looking to find a good deal, you got to look all around. You shop around. So for online right now, we don't have historical data on what's it cost to provide online training. So that's what we've been doing, is trying to find out what's the common industry, acceptable standard as far. When I talked about development of curriculum, I said most vendors were in the $4,500 range. One vendor said $25,000. If I had just gone with that vendor and not shopped around.
Oh, I know.
So that's all we're doing right now.
Okay. Lately, is there a representative from Temple here? Yes. Yeah, okay. This concerns you because we've gotten, our organization has gotten feedback from a lot of other constables, from the instructors that come through Temple, okay, in the Temple area, where they go off the script as far as what needs to be taught. classifying constables as not being legitimate law enforcement officers. Basically saying that LEOSA does not apply to us. Other things in that regard, basically, that are disparaging to the constabulary. First, has Temple heard of anything about this? Has the board heard anything about this? And is any action being taken against these instructors, or at least to pull the leash on the instructors to get them to stay on point when it comes to the curriculum?
Well, as far as curriculum, I can tell you a Temple instructor came to staff, was made aware of us that they were not following the curriculum, and we were able to document that and verify it. And that instructor has not been teaching for the program. Okay. We have done that through the history of the program. If we pay instructors to teach the curriculum, if they're not going to, and I tell this to instructors when I meet with them, I say, if you have issue with the curriculum and you think it's incorrect, you don't need to teach for us. These guys are at-will employees of the contractors. So if you honestly think that our curriculum is bad or incorrect, you don't need to teach for us. And that occurs. So.
And there have been instructors dismissed throughout the training regions.
Yes.
In the 22 years that I was associated.
There have been plenty of instructors who have been, because also too, the vendors, because these guys are at-will employees, it's easy for them to tell an instructor, hey, I don't need you anymore. Thanks.
I think you have to provide specific dates, times, and what was said. And
yeah, I can go back for them if that's what they want.
I mean,
stuff,
you can't expect Temple
that's
to
what they
address
need.
the problem if they
don't have
the
specifics.
information. It's one thing when people sit collectively and complain about something, but if there were 20 people sitting in the class,
right,
you should be able to have 20 people verify.
Yeah.
That's what this person said. This is the date that they said it. And then that information should be brought forth to the board.
And a lot of times, if we hear like one incident, well, basically it's one incident and stuff. There's nothing really get riled up about it. But when it tends to be a repeated incident through the course of the year, and it's basically been out from the Temple area of their classes and stuff that's been reported back, that's why we bring it up.
And again, Ron,
you should bring it up, as Major White said. Right. It'll be dealt with if it's documented,
right,
names, dates, times, what exactly happened, so it can be investigated.
Okay.
And any instructor that does not follow the program is not going to be teaching for us. I can guarantee you that.
I'm speaking as a director of a training academy.
Yeah.
If one of my instructors was doing that, and then you come to an open forum, complain, oh, this is what we've heard, but nobody's ever told me about a specific time date, how would you expect me to effectively handle that situation when I haven't been provided the documentation?
Okay, we can work on getting some of those things.
And
But I at least wanted to bring up that, like I said, it's not just one incident, it's been several incidents. That's why I bring it up, just so that maybe they can reinforce it with their instructors.
If that's the case, we all need to get on it.
Okay.
That's why documentation is so important.
I understand.
Okay, how much more you got there, Quinn?
Just a couple more things. As far as the letter that Council West was talking about and stuff, I agree with the commissioner and stuff. We need to just stay with the CETA and the charges there and stuff like that, because everything else, to be honest with you, it sounds like an overstep of the authority, as I just got done reading here and stuff earlier and stuff, as far as the authority for the commission and the board here and stuff like that. Is there a need for a definition for constables and some other issues addressed? Yeah, but I don't think this is going to be the forum that needs to address that. Just like talking about getting rid of antiquated laws and stuff like that. What's antiquated to you might be current with me. I know one of the things that usually brought up is about the cattle rustling and stuff like that. But we still have constables that get involved with that, with some of the local farmers and stuff. So that's not something that you want to get rid of, because then again, we're also then giving up some of our authority, and we don't want to start down that slippery slope either.
Okay, come on, move on.
Also, just talking about like the one voice, you got the state police there, okay? However, we don't have the same structure that the state police have, because of the fact that we're almost like local police departments and stuff as well. They have their unions and everything also, but it's not all together and stuff. So we do have our associations, and that's where that comes in. The other thing I'll talk about, ask about too, is we have 3 constables on the board. Okay, you'll see some of us here are in our uniforms. When Fred was up here and represented us very, very well, he was always in uniform. You may not agree with some of the points and stuff like that of discussion, but you always knew where he stood. He was for us. You know, we would ask that don the uniform if you're going to conduct constable business. I applaud the state police over here and stuff like that, because to me that's loud and proud of the state police.
Okay,
there.
Constable Quinn, do you have anything else?
Well,
Because that's it.
This is the public voice, isn't it?
It is the public voice.
All right,
but
then.
to
Well,
criticize-
that's what I'm
criticize
asking.
board members who don't
I'm
wear
just pointing
uniform,
that out.
That's enough.
I'm just pointing that out.
Okay, you pointed
Thank
it
you for
out,
your
that's
time.
enough. Who's next?
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Please.
First of all, I do all my training through Temple, and I have nothing but high praise for Dee and the staff down there.
Would he identify himself, please?
Oh, yeah, identify yourself.
I'm sorry, Brian Altos, Berks County. I thought I did that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If a comment was made, like was mentioned, all that was being said was that, like, the state police have the authority to make traffic stops. We as constables do not, unless there's a law there that I'm not aware of. That's the only thing that they're trying to get us, or thick-headed guys, to understand. We can't be out there making traffic stops like PSP and the local police. So I commend Dee and her staff 100%.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Jack Garner, I'm a former constable from Dauphin County. As far as the letter that Constable Westcover suggests, I just have one quick question to...
Please, sir, please. You're the former constable.
It's a public voice, yes.
You're a former constable?
Yes.
I mean, what kind of input do you have here?
Well, I'd like to say it if you'd give me a moment to say it. Sir.
I'm not giving you a moment. That's enough. Anybody else? Please sit down, Mr. Garner. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion, John Bruno.
Commissioner?
Second.
Roll call.
John Bruno, aye.
Roderick, aye.
Eric Westover, aye.
Thomas Berletic, aye.
Lights on. Oh, wait.
Thanks, Brian. All hard.
Very good.
I tried to say something. I am not prepared.
You can have another one. Here you go. Hey, bud.
But I also.
I think generally
That's okay.
I was too, and I just like it.
I always say this.
I was too afraid. I was too afraid.
that would take care of it.
I know, there were so many times.
Yeah, but that would solve all this.
You know, good analogy. A few exceptions, okay, with me, by statute. That is basically if I can mirror that, all right? No, I don't think so, no. Because that's more visible.
It is.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah, oh, I know.
So, you know.
I was hoping I'd get
But, you know, our duties. Yeah, that's really good. That's what I do.
All right, man. We'll catch you all later, man. You have a good one, Al.
Take care, man. Very
Yeah, I got the first one.
Like Toyota.
I just got the airbags last week. A year. So I took it in yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
So I need to get sunshine or something.